Evening, y'all. Another thought. I said in a previous video about congressional titans of the globe. Well, let's talk. If you're a Christian, this is gonna make a lot of sense. I think. I could have just had one too many, and that's okay too. Tell me I'm wrong. That's what the comment section's there for. The only comments I really delete are the ones advertising sexy nude pics. They're for me. I'm gonna hunt them. They're not. No, I'm just messing with you. Anyway, in the days of the Greeks and the Romans, they talked of multiple gods. And there were even times where gods and humans would procreate to make half gods, half humans, and then it got diluted through the time, and there became a time where we've even heard the term of god killers. So I don't acknowledge any of these Greek or Roman gods. As my god, I consider them lowercase g's, which is going to pertain to this argument. When society elevates individuals to a status of lowercase g, godlike status, and these so-called gods, or lords, or titans, or whatever they may be, or what they ever may deem themselves to be, come to an end to where the people are subjected in those times in old Roman and Greek lore, there would come the god killers, the warriors, those who would rise up from amongst the ranks and achieve what most would believe impossible. Not that it was impossible, but most would believe that it was impossible in those times. And these are where the stories come from, and folklore and everything else. But usually it was everyday man that just elevated himself above the nonsense and achieved something great through sheer willpower. That realm of willpower is not out of yours or even my reach. But in today's mentality, I think that those lowercase god killers I think in the back of many people's minds they're almost yearned for. But I'm gonna actually go ahead and tie it back to, I know, my favorite author again, Louis L'Amour. If you've never read any of his stuff, please look him up. I honestly I could give you multiple titles to check him out, but I read him very much as a youth, and I guess in a lot of ways he helped frame my mind state. But there is always a cost. And I'm sure my viewers, you all know this, but anybody coming across this video, you need to also realize that in any endeavor there is a cost. And it's not always the one you think it is, but it is just as gravitous as anything that you might have thought, maybe even more. But whenever a town would go bad in the Old West, and the people, I'm not going to elaborate on that. Some people can, I'll leave that to you in the comments. When the people would be so distraught, so beside themselves. And this was a time where there were engine fighters and Civil War veterans and veterans of the Mexican-American wars. I mean, the battle and war was nothing new in this time, but there was a word that always creeped in, and it was civilized. Well, we're too civilized for that, or we can handle this in a civilized manner. And I'm kind of going off on a tangent there, but the point was, whenever a band of ne'er-do-wells would besiege a town, ransack it, use it to their pleasures, extort the locals, whatever the case might be, they would always plead to someone to fix their problems. And as most storytellers will tell it, there comes the outsider. The one who was never a part of their crowd necessarily, but they trusted enough that he could handle their problems, and then might not necessarily take advantage of them in the long run. So they would offer them all these things, this individual, the outsider. Money, comfortless lodging, women, you name it. They would give him anything that he asked to remove the problem. But in these stories, most of the time the ne'er-do-well was one of those individuals who had played on, not necessarily played, but lived on both sides of the spectrum of the quote-unquote outlaws and society. And for whatever reason, you all can put your reasons in the comments, this individual would go ahead and say, okay, I'll remove the problem for this town. And he would. And he would do it by one thing and one thing alone. Because he would wind up talking to the individuals, the ne'er-do-wells. He would talk to them. And when the talking didn't work, as it usually doesn't, it would either come down to fisticuffs or gunplay. I shouldn't say, I hate to use the word play in any of this. Gunfights. Because especially in one of the books, I don't remember which one it was, he said, it takes a wolf to fight wolves. But it takes a man to live among sheep. And after it was all said and done and the hero the hero had saved the day, the townfolk would want to go back to normal. They would want to reestablish life as they knew it. And in which case, the individual in which they hired to be the wolf among the wolves, to preserve their way of life, he became ostracized again. There was no longer a need for them or him. So they turned him out. They said, "Thank you. Here's what we promised you. Now you can go." You know, there's a lot more I could say about that. But we are not too far from those times. So, I don't know if that's going to help. It's just something that I've always had on my mind, and I've talked with others about this, and I don't know. I just never really. Nobody ever saw it the way I seen it, but I'm pretty sure amongst my subscribers, I know I'm going to have a few of you out there. So, just remember, when they hire you to be a wolf among the wolves, if that time ever does come, will you do it, and why? Should you do it? These are all questions that I don't necessarily have the answer to. You get the picture.